Two places the pay gap kicks in. One is at the first promotion because men ask for it and negotiate. And the second is maternity leave. We are losing our best leaders.
Care that we get here as opposed to other developed countries is wild. Why are we so far away from it in this country?
After I sold my company, I'm in a boardroom. I was pulled aside after the board meeting and I was told there's no room for emotion in the boardroom.
I can get caught up in this because, the women's fight, it is about all of us. It's not about taking anything away from anyone.
According to the World Economic Forum, it says it'll take over 134 years to close the gender gap. I say we can flip it in 5.
Oldish. The art of knowing more and caring less. With your host, Randy Spelling, Brian Austin Green, and Sharna Burgess.
Welcome back, Oldish fam. Thank you for coming to join with us for another episode. We are so excited to have you here. We are going to have an amazing conversation today, one that I have been looking forward to for a very long time with an incredible guest. Today, we are going to be tackling the maternity leave gap in America, the myth of the work-life balance, and how far are we really from true gender equality. We have the woman in the building to talk about that, and that is Miss Shelley Zalis. She is the CEO of the Female Quotient. She's the founder of #See Her, and she's the self-proclaimed chief troublemaker, shaking up the corporate culture around the globe. I am so excited for this conversation. Shelley, welcome to Oldish.
Oh my God. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. I love the name Oldish because you're forever young in your mind. It's all about mindset. And I'm honored and inspired. So
yeah,
thank you for being with us. It's amazing.
What a
Truly.
pleasure.
I am such a fan of yours. I'm such a fan of the Female Quotient, which is how I came across you. It is my go-to every single day on Instagram to get those golden nuggets. How did you found it? When did you find it? And was it instant success for you?
Well, I like rose golden. So
Okay.
instead of golden, I like the rose gold because it definitely sets us apart. You know what? I think my entire career has been untextbook-like. Nothing has been in a textbook, and it has not been a linear go this, and then it takes you to this and takes you to this. Have you ever taken a survey on the internet, an online
Too
survey?
many, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry, but I'm the mother of that invention. So that was my claim to fame in business, pioneering online research, moving surveys from offline to online in a day and age where no one was online.
Wow.
Except wealthy old men with broadband connections. So, we still most of us had 14.4 modems at the time. So that was really what I did for a living. And so I'm a data wonk. And I was the only female CEO top 25 my whole career. It didn't hold me back in my career. I did just fine because I broke every rule that made no sense and wrote my own successfully. But it was I was an only and lonely. You'd go to these big conferences, male dominated, lots of lines for the men's room, no one in line for the women's room. And after I sold my company a couple of times, I all of a sudden found myself, I had 250 employees operating in 6 cities as OTX, my online research company, doing about 60 million in revenue. I sold to a company that was doing 2.6 billion in revenue with 16,000 employees operating in 83 countries. And so now, once again, I'm in a boardroom of 2 women and 24 men on a publicly traded board. And I remember the first meeting where they had just acquired my company, they were moving my employees around like chess pieces. And tears came down my eyes. And I said, well, they don't belong there. That's not who they are. That's not where they're going to fit. And that's not where they're going to thrive. And I was pulled aside after the board meeting and I was told there's no room for emotion in the boardroom. And I talk a lot about heartbeat moments, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Your head, the cognitive, rational, justified, you can talk yourself in or out of something, but your heart, you got to follow your heart. And I had a choice at that time, once again. Do I agree? No room for emotion in the boardroom, even though I was now a pretty well-known CEO and I sold for a lot of money and they needed me. Or do you do what I did, which was give a speech the following week to thousands, and I called it Bring Emotion to the Boardroom, ! Heart, heart, heart. And I have always realized that if I don't start a new trend or break an old pattern and create a new one, how will change ever happen? I'm not a status quo girl at all, especially when the rules don't work. And so having the name Chief Troublemaker gives me permission, self-proclaimed permission, to break the rules that make no sense and create new ones. I sold my company. I committed to staying 5 years to run global innovation in 83 countries. But in my heart, I always knew that I also had to give back with generosity what I wish I had my whole career, which was girlfriends in business. I'm 63 years old. Women did not support women throughout my career, not because we're bitches and bossy and all the stereotypes that people attribute to women, but just there was such a scarcity of jobs at the top. You would dig your heels into someone else to push them down to get
And was it
ahead.
fear too? I mean, I would assume that fear played a large part in that too, of like not wanting to rock the boat.
It's not, I don't think we were afraid. I just don't think it was ever done. Like you're told to walk in the footsteps of your predecessor or of your role model or of your boss. It was men. And they just would, this was just what it was until you realize, well, who said? And you start something, and then if it gets sticky, it becomes, you go from a moment to a movement. But that first move is scary. It is. Even for anyone, it's scary. And I always say it's like wearing a new pair of shoes, high heels. Those look comfortable. These became comfortable.
Super comfortable.
First time you wear them, they pinch.
Yes.
They hurt. The more you wear them, the more comfortable you get. And so you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable until that becomes the new comfortable. Right. And so to answer your question now, I wanted to go to CES. I was, building all this tech stuff in an old school research company. And CES is in Vegas, 150,000 people at the time, less than 3% were women. And I thought, why am I walking the floor alone again? I just don't want to do that. It's not fun. So I invited 5 girlfriends and said, if you know other women, invite them. And 24 hours later, 50 women showed up to walk the floor of the Consumer Electronics Show. 2 remarkable things happened at that moment. One, every single guy's head turned, like, where the hell did all you women come from? And it was just this whoosh moment. That's all I can, the shivers of here we are, this pack. And I coined the phrase power of the pack. A woman alone has power. Collectively, we have impact. You're invisible as a one. You are unstoppable as a pack of 50, right? And the second thing was I was surrounded by people just like me, work-life balance issues, imposter syndrome, fear of creating change, breaking rules that don't make sense, all of those things. But you know what else we had? Power of the purse. Badass senior executives that started doing deals with one another. And 50 turned to 100, 100 turned to 350, all within 3 days.
Wow.
And that's when I started the Girls Lounge. And the Girls Lounge, the opposite of boy is girl, the opposite of club is lounge. If there's a boys club, now there's a girls lounge. And I just created this safe space in my one little tiny room, hotel room, which then we ended up with the penthouse suite by day 3. And I called my hair person. I said, you got to drive my car over. I live in LA. Drive the car to Vegas and let's do hair and makeup too. And we'll do deals while we're getting our hair and makeup done. And why are we hiding who we are? And that's how the Girls Lounge was born, under the Female Quotient. And the Female Quotient, the name came because everyone talks about IQ. You have IQ. You have the intelligence quotient. Then people started talking about EQ, the emotional quotient. And I said, first came IQ, then came EQ, now comes FQ. When you add more women to any equation, there's a return on equality. Everything is better. And that's how it was born. And at the time, so many women, senior women, would say, but we're not girls, we're women. They didn't like the name. And I said to them, well, have you ever heard of a man object to being a boy in the boys club? Have you ever heard the phrase, go girl, girlfriends, a girl's girl, not a girly girl, a girl's girl? And I kept the name. And a lot of senior women didn't come to these lounges. I started doing these pop-ups at big industry conferences, predominantly men, from CES to Cannes Lions, Festival of Media and Creativity. And a lot of mid-level women, I call the messy middle, would show up, and not the senior women when you talk about support. And then I get invited to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, which was a dream. Like, oh my God, the World Economic Forum, that's where the big boys play, and world leaders and Fortune 500 CEOs and government officials. And my invitation was as follows. We want you to come, but you might not feel welcome.
Interesting.
Yeah. Your head says, rational, cognitive, don't go. Heart, ba-boom, ba-boom, you must go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to a corporate sponsor. It was a bank, big financial institution, to their women's group. And I said, would you sponsor me? I need $250,000 to take this hole in the wall, the last space at the World Economic Forum, to bring the Girls Lounge. And they said, of course we will, but you have to change the name. I said, I'm not changing the name. It's going to be called the Girls Lounge. So I self-funded. I called a girlfriend of mine, the COO of Bloomberg. I said, you got to go with me. I'm afraid to go by myself. I don't want to go to a place that I'm not going to be welcome. She said, of course I'll go with you. And then I invited 50 other women, and we had a slumber party at the World Economic Forum.
Wait, what does that even look like?
Yeah.
It was good. We
So
took villas.
When you say that they wanted you to change the name, did they just want you to change the name to something that was less controversial than that? Like just make up any other name?
No women in Davos.
Right.
Actually, less than 17% of white badges, which is the official World Economic Forum badge, which costs like $1 million, were women. So I called it the Girls Lounge, the place for the 17%.
Love that.
And I had big windows. It was a dump, but I hung chandeliers, and I had it was this big.
And you made it
cozy and comfortable and beautiful. And we had the best content of anyone. And people would poke their head in. Some would come, some wouldn't. But I had 50 of us. I made the pack.
Yeah.
Like
you didn't need any more. You were good.
And then year 2, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, shows up. And he comes in, he goes, wow, you have balls. This is the best thing that's ever happened to the World Economic Forum. He said, count me in as your keynote speaker every year, and I will be your sponsor. And you can have any sponsor you want except the one that turned you down.
Wow.
Heartthrob.
Another heart.
Yeah.
That wasn't even a heartbeat. That's a heartthrob.
Wow. Yeah.
So your first year when you were there, did you feel that pushback? Did you feel unwelcome as you were
No, because we
warned?
made ourselves fun. When you bring a pack,
Right.
you bring your own posse.
Power
Like I didn't
numbers.
wait. When you wait and watch and you're one, it takes a long time to build momentum. When I bring the party, I didn't care.
What's amazing is that example, because so many people, when they're in any sort of situation where they feel that pushback, they go, okay, let me step back a little bit. Instead, you were like, I'm just going to remake this so I don't feel what would normally push somebody away from this situation, this experience. And that's amazing.
Who says status quo is the right way?
For sure.
You know, it's interesting. If you take a bill out, a dollar bill, you'll see a name, Rosie Rios, on that bill. She's the former treasurer of the United States of America. Her name is Rosie Rios. She's on every bill. And she was during the Obama administration. When I went to the Treasury one day, and I see on her wall, picture, woman, go on. I said, Rosie, who are all these women? She said, they're all former treasurers of the United States of America. I said, they were women? Like, do you even know that?
No, I don't know that.
No idea.
I said, well, how is that possible? And she said, one day, I don't know if it was Hoover or Truman or I don't know, some president, long time ago, oldish time ago, decided that they were just going to hire a woman as treasurer because she's more detail oriented and whatever. And from that day, a pattern was broken and a new one was started. And from then on,
it was all women.
Yeah. Change happens when you take that first step and stay resilient and take the second and the third. Don't give up.
Yeah.
So because when I'm listening to your story, I mean, the courage, the self-awareness to say, oh, I'm feeling the pushback and I feel my heart and I want to listen to that. For someone who might not feel as courageous or clear, what would you say to them in breaking a pattern or taking that first step?
You know, it's really interesting because you often hear the phrase, you have to be willing to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who wants to be willing to fail? It's already setting yourself up to fail. Versus, how much risk are you willing to take? Which would you rather be asked? Are you willing to fail, or how much risk are you willing to take?
Depends what I'm going to risk.
But that's
Totally.
your choice.
Yeah.
You can take a little baby step. You could take a big step. You could keep stepping. And, you know, I could tell you what Tony Robbins taught me on an airplane one day. But it's how much risk are you willing to take? No risk, no reward.
Mm.
If you don't take a risk, you might have a regret. And I have a no regret policy. I never want to look back and say shoulda, woulda, could have. So I think
Right.
forward in the moment and say, will I feel bad if I make that decision? If the answer is yes, I don't do it. You know, and no one will ever remember that meeting that you missed or that business trip you didn't take, but the people important in your life will always remember those moments that matter. So don't miss those moments that matter. And so I'm a risk taker. I had nothing to lose.
Always been?
No,
No.
but it was life lived experience that the rules of the corporate world, and that's a whole other podcast that we can talk about because I am oldish, a long time ago, you know, raising my children as a primary caregiver, I couldn't work until midnight. I couldn't work and travel like the men. This is the day and age we didn't have the internet. We were on typewriter still, and we were on, you know, and there was no online shopping. Like you can't, what are you going to sit in your office 12? We weren't even doing anything,
Right.
but we would stay until
Right.
midnight because the person in the cubicle next to you was doing that. And the person next to you. And one day I just picked up and left at 5. I didn't lose my job. Right? We're afraid to pick up our kids or to talk about our children or, you know, all of this stupid nonsense. And so I knew that a couple reasons later, I had to be my own boss. I'd rather be in charge of my own destiny and write the rules that make sense for me. And if they make sense for a primary caregiver, they're going to work for everybody.
I'd love to get into that as you've touched
Wow.
on, talking about your experience being a mother and in the workplace and what you experienced and knowing you just got to be your own boss. You have called out the maternity gap leave here as, I believe, a major failure in the American workplace. What was your experience when you were raising kids back then?
There was no parental leave. Forget about parental leave. There was no maternity leave.
Right.
Like my first child, he's now 32 years old. I had a C-section.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember being in the delivery room taking phone calls,
Wow.
client calls.
Wow.
And one of my clients said, "Where are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm about to deliver a baby." I thought I ended up with disease. And I was, I think, 6 centimeters dilated at that point. Like it was crazy.
God.
And so your body needs to recover.
Yeah.
And we didn't have maternity leave. I was actually afraid if I stepped out of the workplace for 3 months, I'd lose my job.
Which is still a fear for so many women today.
Of course.
by
Well,
the way.
it's the biggest challenge because even 3 months, you know, and I was in business development at the time. Like, I'm going to lose my class. Someone's going to take my place. What am I going to do? I need my job, right? I mean, so this was, you know, a long time ago, but unfortunately, not much has changed because women are still the primary caregivers. And if we had mandatory or encouraged parental leave, because I think it is parental leave. My husband is a butt doctor. He's a colorectal surgeon. And we both wanted careers. You know, he was really just starting out at the time. And for both of us to have careers, we had to be parents, not mother role, father role, but parents. And we shared responsibility. And our deal was if one is traveling, the other's not, so that someone was home with our kids. And we just, you know, he was responsible for sports and for finance and for that. And I was responsible for school and for home but when he was out of town, I had to tie the hockey skates on my kids, which their ankles would wobble, but you do the best you can.
Right.
And it was shared responsibility so we could have both successful careers.
I'm Australian, and so daily I see things, whether it be on my newsfeed or Instagram or through talking to friends, the difference in the care that we get here as opposed to other developed countries is wild to me. What you get in Australia or Europe as a mother, as parents, paid a year parental leave for father
For
and
both
mother.
parents.
So the first 2
Wow.
years of that child's life, they have a parent home with them. Why are we so far away from it in this country?
Well, number one, I have never depended on public sector to fix our challenges. I really hold private Fortune 500 companies responsible. You want the best leaders. You know what the best leaders are? Leaders with empathy, compassion,
Mm-hmm.
passion,
Mm-hmm.
collaboration, care,
Yeah.
human, emotion, empathy.
Mhm.
All those things are, in my opinion, the greatest qualities of leaders today. And yet we are losing our best leaders to caregiving. Shame on us. And when you look at where the gaps kick in, where pay gap kicks in,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on average, women are 80 cents on the dollar. Black women, 63 cents on the dollar.
Mhm.
Hispanic women, 54 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
Not much has changed. Why? We are losing our best leaders. 2 places the pay gap kicks in. One is at the first promotion, because men ask for it and negotiate. And the second is maternity leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're on maternity leave, out of sight, out of mind, you miss that promotion cycle and you miss the pay raise.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then it just keeps snowballing from there.
So it's kind of like these penalties of motherhood, right? We're incredible leaders and we have all those qualities you're talking about, yet the penalty of motherhood is that you lose these opportunities at the moment.
And if we talked about it as the benefit of parenthood,
Mm.
by the way, being on PTA, you know what you learned in even on the PTA, you learn great skills, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Parenting, great skills. If we all brought parenting skills to the workplace, we'd have a
Yes.
much better culture.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's actually a CEO that is Paul Pullman, the former CEO of Unilever. They had elective paternity leave. So maternity leave everyone takes. They had elective paternity leave. But he found that a lot of his men weren't taking the paternity leave. A lot of men don't take it because they fear it shows a sign of weakness or whatever. And so he went around to every father that didn't take it and called them and said, "Why are you not taking it? I want to have caring people in this company.
Mm.
I want caregivers,"
That's
Which-
incredible.
Wow.
which was amazing.
Yeah.
And, and a lot of people talk about the caregiving skills, compassion and empathy, all the things, passion, what we talked about as soft skills. Those are the most critical, essential skills. Let's stop calling them soft.
Right.
What is soft
Absolutely.
and hard
What
skills?
is soft?
So
Exactly.
are you seeing that change in corporate? No.
But that's because yes and no. In the youngish companies,
Mhm.
tech companies, yes, they are giving, they might not call it mandatory, but they are giving 6 months, a lot. The Googles and the Salesforce and all those newish companies. And the younger generation are all taking it and sharing, mainly because they both want to have dual income families.
Mhm.
Right.
The oldish, more traditional companies, because it wasn't
They're just setting
pattern.
ways.
they don't break that pattern and just create a new one.
Hmm.
But I actually think that if they took responsibility for shared care, they would have a much better, loyal, happy workforce.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
think it makes a lot of difference. And I'm working on a new concept that I'll roll out that I think is kind of really good idea, which is there's so many benefits companies offer that no one knows about or cares about.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
If you took that money and gave everyone a care wallet, $50,000 in a care wallet
Mm.
for whether it's self-care, elderly care, child care, we could solve that problem in a minute flat.
Mm-hmm.
$50,000 for a parent lets you have a nanny for
The
a year.
gift of that. Yes, absolutely. A nanny for a year, or
The problem is just up to 0 to 1 year old with your child, because after 1, they could go to day camp, they could go to daycare, they could go to other places. But from 0 to 1, that's a big challenge.
yeah. I see there's a school that we drive past on our way to work and it says from 6 weeks to 6th grade. And my heart just breaks when I see it. I could never have
The parents
imagined.
have to drop their kids off at 6 weeks old
I had
to maintain.
Right. I had the blessing of being able to be at home with my baby for the first year and say no to work and take that time. But not everybody has that. And thankfully, we were in a place where we weren't desperate for resources, but so many people are. What are some of the resources that women don't know about? Or are there any? Are there any resources that are not widely known that are accessible for people?
Well, I mean, I always think that, one of the other things I'm working on is for HR departments to actually send a note within the company to say, these people have had babies, they live in your neighborhood, because you're more likely to trust a coworker than a stranger, right? And share a nanny, share the care, because it is expensive.
Yes.
Or in my company, and this is not normal, but I'm not normal. I just tell all my employees, take it as you want it. So, we have very good policies in place for maternity leave or paternity leave, for parental leave. And I'll just say, either take it where the government will help supplement and I will pay the difference. Or if you're not the type that wants to take, like when the government pays for your maternity leave, and maternity leave, not paternity leave, you cannot turn your computer on for 3 months. You cannot make a work call. You cannot turn. I'm not good that way.
Right.
I can't just shut off for 3 months. I would rather be a little on. So I just tell people I do life stage accommodation. Take it as you wish. Make your own schedule. Take 3 months, take 6 months, whatever you need, if that's what you want to do. Or if you want to work, take a month off, 3 weeks off, and then you want to work 3 hours from 9 to 12 when the baby's sleeping and from 6 to 9, and make your own schedule.
Right.
It's
important.
Do what you want.
Everybody's got their own needs in those
and
situations.
take that for 4 years.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
Just live your life. Live your best life, because I want you to stay forever.
For the purpose of people being as happy as they possibly
whatever
can
makes
be
you
working.
happy. Like
Right.
I'm OCD. I can't shut off like that. That's not even on vacation. I won't get my emails done in the morning, and but it's my schedule.
I can't either. It's super hard. Yeah, when I go on vacation, for me to just sit in a chair and unplug from everything, I can't do it.
Yeah, and
I always have to be
is
plugged in somehow.
Part of that is really important because we're sort of fed in the self-help world too of this work-life balance, and I'm all for better balance, but this idea someone could feel the best and purposeful when they're plugged in. So taking that away from someone could be really detrimental. We're all individual.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as balance. Life is not 50-50. It's not so neat. It's messy. You have one life with 5 dimensions. You have your career, you have your family, you have your community, your friends, and the one we forget about, especially as women, is ourselves. Women always put everyone before them. And, at every stage of life, it's not an equal share of the pie. They're not 20, 20, 20, 20. So you have to adjust according to the life stage that you're at. What you have to do from 0 to 1 with a baby might be very different than from 1 to 3, then from 3 to, now my kids are older. So it's not just that you're a parent. It's what stage of life are you at?
Right.
And Shelley, how did you learn this? I'm guessing that you didn't learn this from all of your success. Was there a moment? Was there something hard that you went through where this epiphany came to you?
First of all, I'm always learning and I'm always listening. My community is over 6.5 million women across 30 industries and 100 countries. So all women who work. And I've been at entry level, I've been at mid level, I've been at the top, and when you're the boss, you can make your own rules. But when you're rising up, you can't. And in my oldish day and age, my father used to say he was ageless, which is oldish, but ageless, because age is a mindset, truly. People were uncomfortable putting pictures of their children on their desks because women would be, this is such a stereotype, women would be called distracted. Men, that's so cute.
Wow.
That's so
women, it's
ridiculous.
you just can't unplug and get away from you can't. All you care about is being a mother. That's so frustrating.
And we would sneak out to pick up our kids at soccer or at the doctor or why? And I said, what handbook are we all reading? We think it says in the corporate handbook, you may not be a parent.
Care about your family.
Or care about your family.
Yeah.
Don't be a human being.
Yeah, no. Don't. Yeah.
I said, show me that.
This is your entire life or nothing.
It's frustrating because it's like there's this old school belief you have to think or be or move like a man to be successful in business, right? Which is, or running like a girl. Australia did an incredible campaign on that at some point.
The Procter & Gamble one.
Yes.
It was
and
really good.
Phenomenal Run
Yeah.
Like a Girl and what it means to kids. And then as we grow up, what that means to us and how it's become a derogatory thing. Yet at the end of the day, women are unbelievably capable of raising children and having an incredible career and running a Fortune
We
500
multitask on
company.
steroids.
Multitask on steroids.
Yeah.
It's a part of our beautiful brain is what makes us so good at motherhood. And so it's ridiculous that this idea has been created that it's actually a crutch for us instead of a strength for us. And I love that there are people like you proving that wrong. And I hope that more and more women understand that we don't have to live by these old school standards that have been put forward to keep us in a box. We could run the fucking world.
Yeah.
And we could run it better than what has been done right now.
Listen, we need masculine and feminine. I'm not saying
Balance,
male, female.
right.
Because plenty of men have the feminine, plenty of women have the masculine, or a combination of both.
Yeah.
What drives me nuts is language. Like you'll even hear today in the workplace, oh, we need male allies.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear we need female allies. Why are we putting allies as gender? We're just giving men then more power. We need leadership allies. If you are in a position of power, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, use that power to pull everyone up and create a culture of belonging where everyone feels seen, heard, can bring their best selves to the table, can use their voice, can talk about things that matter, right? It's behind every great man is a great woman. What?
Yeah.
Those are oldish phrases.
Yeah.
Like dumb.
Ancient, archaic phrases. Done.
It's so embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed as a man to be sitting here and hearing this because it's so archaic. And I love hearing that like a lot of these new tech companies are really thinking in a new way. That's fantastic. It's because I'm oldish.
But you're sitting here, which is,
I'm oldish. Like this is,
it's
Right.
good.
like this is to hear like, oh no, this is the people within your generation that still just cannot get through their heads this concept of changing the way they've thought and spoken and represented and care.
Yeah.
Oh my, it's
Yeah.
So how far
maddening.
away do you think we are really from gender equality in the workplace? And do you think currently what's happening within, let's just speak in America right now and with this administration, do you think it's making that harder? Do you think we're going backwards a little bit right now?
According to the, it's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question.
Very, yes.
Yeah.
According to the World Economic Forum, it says it'll take over 134 years to close the gender gap.
Wow.
And from when? When was that?
It keeps
So
growing.
not very long.
2
Okay.
years. A
Okay.
year ago, it was 132 years. Today, it's 134 years.
Wow.
Okay. And that's
Great. So we're
overall.
going
So
in the
that
wrong
includes
direction.
pay
Promising.
gap. That
Right.
includes all
Wrong
education
way.
gap, all these different things.
Yeah.
So overall gender gap. I say we can flip it in 5
Okay.
with conscious leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people say, oh, it was unconscious bias. If you use the word unconscious, you're conscious. Once you're conscious, you have a choice. Do something or don't.
Totally.
So
Simple.
choice, priority,
Yeah.
and conscious leadership. You can flip it in 5. We have the data. And when you think about where will you be in 134 years?
In my next life, hopefully.
Where will your children be
In
in their next life?
Same.
In the
Where
next life.
will your
My
grandchildren
grandkids will be here.
No, they won't. 134 years
Wouldn't they be here?
while you're still active in the workplace making decisions.
Oh, right.
A leader
Yes,
of the
no,
work. You might be
yeah.
80 or something,
Yeah,
but
for
you're
sure.
kind of good at, I don't know. But think about that. And so then think about what's been done in miraculous time periods. We sent men, could have been women, to the moon in 10 years. We didn't have spacesuits. We do now, thank God, because we created the internet in 25 years, ChatGPT in 2 weeks,
Wow.
and a
That's
vaccine
right.
for the most deadly disease in COVID in 1 year. Why do we have to wait 134 years to close the gender gap when we have the data?
Mm.
and they're all fixable. We can't fix climate. We can't fix hunger. We can't fix education. But a Fortune 500 CEO can leave a legacy of change in the lifetime of his or her leadership if they want to, period.
So what are the, not to make it sound like a negative thing, but the little people do, those that aren't a CEO of a Fortune 500, how do we help create that change and create that movement and help it get done in 5?
The time isn't as important as the mindset that we each need to have, that we can be anything we want to be. And you have to maybe make some of your own rules, knowing you will not get in trouble by living your best life, and you can thrive in the workplace. And so a lot of that is that imposter syndrome, where men and women have it, by the way. Men just in general tend to ignore it, and women let that voice get louder. So you just got to shut that bitch up in your head.
Right.
And you got to own it. You got to be it. And
I have it. You're like preaching to me right now, because I've had it this week with certain things. Like, not that we need to get into it, but yes, that voice inside your head, that imposter syndrome.
But flip it again, where it's not that you're an imposter, but you're actually an amazing leader. I'm amazing. And I'm going to surround myself with more amazing people that are going to complement my strengths. Like,
that's the
give
mindset.
Yourself another story.
Yeah.
It's all a story.
That's the conscious living. That's the conscious choosing.
Yeah.
It's all a story. I love that.
And we have that choice. Every CEO knows what their pay gap is, what they're paying men and women. It's data. It's right. So why? I sell candy for $1 to men and 80 cents to women in my lounge. I don't take any money, but my sign says that. Just to sensationalize how dumb
Right.
this is.
Right.
Like,
that's actually a great model
so
to
great.
show. Right.
Oh my God, that's so good.
Totally.
it's because it's stupid.
Yeah, it is stupid.
It doesn't make any sense. So if you know you are paying people differently, fix it.
Right.
Fix it.
Yeah.
Either if you're going to only have maternity leave, then make sure at every pay promotion cycle, they're getting their pay. If you want to close the gap where I just told you it kicks in. Promotions, raises. When I sold my company, this is crazy. The chief legal officer calls me up. She says to me, well, what kind of package do you want? I'm like, I don't know. I said, all I want to make sure of is you can't fire any one of my employees without my permission, and that they all blah, 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 looked after. I said, well, I have one of 3 options. I can either go outside and talk to my friends that are all at my level and ask them how much they make. I don't think you want me to do that. I could go inside and ask the 26 other board members of this company how much they make. I don't think you want me to do that. I said, all I want is to be paid the same as everyone else. So look at the other board members and give me the same package. I don't want more. I don't want less. I want the same. She comes back to me. She goes, well, you now have the best package of anyone in the company. I said, why is that? She goes, well, I went to look at everyone. Someone had a higher salary, so I gave you the top salary. Someone had a better equity package, so I matched that. And someone had a better bonus plan, so I matched that. I said, great. When someone gets a raise, can you let me know?
Well,
Like, why should it be my job to figure out what other people are making and negotiate? It should be a company's job. There's like, why is there discrepancy?
Right.
If you're the same job, same level, or within a job, if there's 3 levels, have this, this, and this. Don't put me to do that, because if I'm someone that isn't good at negotiating, I'm not going to get a good deal.
Has it always worked out for you, this pushback of, say, I just want the same? Or have you been gaslit by men in power? Have you had people turn around and say, I'm sorry, you're not worth it, you don't do this? Or has it always worked out for you to stand your ground?
It's worked out for me to stand my ground because it's what I need.
Right.
I'm sure I have been called bossy, bitchy, aggressive, assertive, decisive, and for men, those are good qualities. For women, and I'll say, I'm not bossy, I'm the boss. I'm not aggressive, I'm passionate. I care. And This work is a huge part of your life. I'm not going to do something that I don't want to do.
Right.
I would get old, not oldish, and I'm not willing to do that. You know, I want to love what I do. When you love what you do, it's called passion. When you don't, it's called stress. I don't need that stress.
Yeah.
When you love what you do, it's called passion. When you don't, it's called stress.
I mean,
Simple.
do you know how many people
It's
just push
so
papers
simple,
9 to
but it's-
5, and then they go home depressed and miserable because they hated their day?
Right.
I mean, you're going to have good days and bad days, but why work somewhere that you
just hate?
and
It's
you're
just
not
a
inspired
mundane,
and you're not
right.
motivated by others?
I'd love to play devil's advocate just for a second,
Go.
okay? Because I'm listening to everything you're saying and I'm sponging it in, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. But what about someone, you know, a woman in the workplace? Let's say it's sort of just a mid-level job, and she's hearing everything you're saying, but her experience is different. Where if she follows her heart or follows what she wants to do, her story is, that's not going to work out for me. I'm going to piss someone off. I'm going to lose my job. What would you say to her?
Well, first of all, we don't know that she is going to lose her job. It's perception becomes reality, right? We feel that is not okay. And if you are talented and recognized for your talent, you won't be the exception to the rule. Like, you know, for me, I always felt I was the exception, and I wanted the exception to become the new norm, which is why I started my own company, which wasn't easy, and I didn't have the money to do it, but I knew I had to, right? Number one, when you are in that position, it is power of the pack. Find your tribe. And that tribe is confidence to get that advice. And also find that conscious leader inside your company. You know, one of the other things I'm working on is changing the sponsorship. You know, people say mentorship, sponsorship. The sponsor is someone at the top that pulls someone up. But we know that that's going to be someone that looks like them, sounds like them, talks like them, plays golf, or whatever it is that they're going to have a good time with. I'm flipping that where it's proximityship, that everyone in the mid-level gets to choose who they want to see them, and they pull. So that there's no bias in the push, but you actually have the opportunity to pull.
I love that.
Because there's plenty of those. You might not have that person as your direct boss, but I truly believe that leaders today in Fortune 500 companies want the best talent. And if you want the best talent, make sure they can thrive with whatever that means. Because what you need is not that hard. And so we don't need more women at the top. We need more conscious leaders at the top.
Agreed.
Yes.
And with lived experience. Because when you think about the oldish CEOs, in those days, and most of them were men, they were not the primary caregiver. So they are writing the rules in their corporations and creating a culture based on what they know. And that's why we need the diversity of mindset, or the diversity of lived experience is even more important than mindset to me. People who've been there, done that. Because when you've been there, done, you know what you need. And that is the rose golden rule. The golden rule, do unto others as you'd want done to yourself. Then we start talking about the platinum rule, do unto others as they'd want done to themselves. The rose golden rule, do unto others based on the collective minority's needs. If you build a system, if you build a culture based on the collective minority, it's going to work for the current majority.
Well,
Duh.
yes.
Right?
So simple, but yeah, duh.
Duh.
right.
But a CEO, it's a man that isn't the primary caregiver, doesn't really understand what that 3 months or what your body feels like or why it matters, or because they haven't done that. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's just the rules of the workplace have been written over 100 years ago by men for men, because women weren't in the workplace. So we don't, it wasn't a bad thing. It's just time to write the modern playbook forward.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And you're a part of that with what you're doing with your companies and the example and the legacy that you're leaving for people and the impact that you're having. And it's incredible to see and to witness. And it's inspiring too. I don't own a company, but I certainly am in workplaces and have circles of friends, and we all try to keep each other accountable and empower each other to make those decisions and bring each other up and give us confidence for the things that we need or we're going after. And that's headed by people like yourself that are the example for us that go, why not? Why not? Why not just ask because you don't know? Why not for that woman that is in that job who's like, I'm probably going to lose it? Why not just ask? Because the first thing that you say, like the number one reason in the pay gap is men ask for the first promotion. They pitch themselves for it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's something even for me this week where I'm like sweating bucket because I want to pitch myself for it, but I already know 2 other men that have gone in, like just drop a text here and there and already had their meeting for it.
Right.
And I'm over here like trying to put a spreadsheet together of how I'm going to attack it. Like it's ridiculous that I'm making such a big deal out of it. Just fucking ask.
Well, and we also know the statistics that men in general are hired for potential and women for performance.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I never even heard that. That's
You look at a man and you're like, oh. And is it, and that's just, and think about it. Is it unconscious bias when you have a man and a woman, equal resume, equal credentials? Same, great school. Even though I don't think school really matters, but unless you want to be a doctor, lawyer, or an accountant, great resume. And I'm going to make the decision of who I'm going to hire. My mind will say, well, she is going to have babies and, need to take time off, and she's not going to be able to work long hours, and she's going to always need to pick up her snotty-nosed kid, and she's going to have to go to, soccer games, and she's not going to be able to travel that much. I'll take him. Mm-hmm. Is that unconscious?
No.
No, it's conscious.
Yeah.
I would probably do the same thing. But I wouldn't do the same thing because I know the power that men and women bring to the table.
Right.
The combination of diversified lived experiences is what we need to create the best companies.
You're making a conscious choice to make the shift.
So you get to trailblaze and you get to educate the people who need to know this to then be more conscious of this biased choice that they're making.
Well, you use the word empower. What does empower mean?
Lifting others up and giving them the feeling and the idea that they can go after that thing that they want, empowering them to go forward.
Okay. So we talk a lot about female empowerment. Do you ever hear male empowerment?
No. No.
So I got rid of the word empower.
Yeah.
Because empower means to give someone power.
Right. They've already got it if they, right.
Mm-hmm.
I
You
just called
have to
it
claim it.
empowered. You don't need to be empowered. You need to be empowered. The power is within you.
Mm-hmm.
We all have ruby slippers. We always could have gone home. Click your ruby slippers.
Yeah.
You have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, it doesn't matter if someone gave you permission because that's not, the confidence has to be within you.
There is a great movie, I believe it was in the 80s, called Labyrinth with David Bowie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah.
Oldish.
And Oldish. But at the very
But
end,
goodish.
the whole thing, the whole moral that gets her to sort of, end this thing and go back is she says, you have no power over me. You have no power. And she realizes she has the power. And all of a sudden, everything changes. The world, it all changes.
Mm-hmm.
So before we ask you 3 questions, which we do for every guest here at Oldish,
Oh, I'm scared.
what's the Tony Robbins story on the airplane?
Such a good story.
He's too big to jump up and down, by the way, on an airplane. So that's
Totally.
We know that's out.
This must have been, what are you, 20? In 2000.
Okay.
2000, 2001. I just launched Online Testing Exchange. And I'm on an airplane coming from Cincinnati back to somewhere, a long flight, maybe LA. I wasn't living in LA at the time. And he's sitting next to me. We're in coach. And on top of me, just like you said. Like,
Yeah.
he's
massive.
huge. He's massive.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he lifted the things up. We're like sitting like that. And the airplane gets stuck. And so we're on the plane for like 8 hours or whatever. And I was in a really bad mood. And he wasn't Tony, like the big, he was Tony Robbins, but still not as well known.
He was fledgling.
And he goes, did you have a bad day? Because he must have heard me on the phone. I said, I don't even know if we had phones at the time. I said, I had a really shitty day. And he said, well, why? I said, why is it that Fortune 500 companies, people are so reluctant to change? Change is scary for people. Why is that so hard? And he takes out the napkin. This is a napkin story. And he draws me these steps. And he says, imagine you're in a 100-story building. If the elevator's working, you're on the first floor, you push 100, you shoot your way up to the top. He says, but if the elevator's broken, you have to take the steps. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. He says, if one set of steps is like red tape because their stairs are wet, they were freshly painted, it's broken, whatever, you got to zig and zag and find your way around it. He says, most people see problems as one big, hairy, messy ball. Like you got a big knot in your head. He says, you got to break them into small steps. And then one day you're going to look back and say, wow, look how far I've come. Step change, step change, step change, step change. And it sounds so basic, but
it was profound.
Profound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I still think about that today because so many people are so afraid of that big thing that they talk themselves out of doing it versus saying, oh, I'm going to make them bite size. And you can take 5 at a time if you want. But you think about your problem solving, that there's always a solution. You just have to find it.
There's always a step. And like you said, that baby risk. Like, what about Bob? Baby steps.
Yeah.
Baby steps. It's one baby risk at a time, one stair.
And as a result, I have always done that. I always find there's always a yes. You just have to find it. And it's how I built my entire online business. No one was online. And to convince people, and how I got Procter & Gamble on board with 19 brands was game changing. I had started in the movie business where I wasn't even in the movie business at the time to take on the godfather of everyone's entertainment testing. His name was Joe Farrell, NRG. I don't know if you know that company. There was no competition. They did mall intercept testing. And I realized if I'm going to build an online research business, I'm going to go after the movie business because it's the hardest business if I can do the movie business and test 40 trailers and spots
you can do anything
in a weekend, I can do womb to tomb package goods.
Yeah.
And, I went to Warner Brothers and I talked to the chief research officer. No one knew me in entertainment. I was well known in packaged goods. No one knew me in entertainment. And I went to him and I said, are you perfectly satisfied with how you do research today? And he said, how could anyone be perfectly satisfied? And that was my opening. And then my second, step that was a no-go that I should have walked away was, he said, but we have an exclusive, and every studio has exclusive contracts with Joe Farrell. I said, let me see the contract. They showed me the contract, and in the contract, it said exclusivity for mall research. I said, there's our break. I'm online. And that is how I built my business.
Wow.
Wow. Incredible.
So you found the way around
the
red tape on the step.
Amazing.
I love it. I have to ask before we get into our 3 questions, one thing. We talk about steps for women, what can they be aware of? But I would love to know what's something that our male listeners can do better to better support and to help create this change.
So I would say for everyone, male and female listening, because I think we're all in this together.
Agreed.
And we need to change the equation for everyone. And when you have diversity of lived experience, it is better for growth, economic growth, innovation, culture, everything goes together. So if you are in a position of power, use that power to pull up the best, but we want equal opportunity. Equal opportunity for the best talent.
Yes.
And then as a result, you need to create that culture. We say these words, but you don't understand it until you feel it. I'm going to go back to the heart. You can rationalize and justify that you need a culture of belonging. But what does that really mean? It means you can come to work bringing your whole self to work.
Right.
And thrive.
Yes.
And have that integration of life. I don't have a separation of this is my work and this is my personal. It's all one life that you live.
Mm-hmm.
And you only have one life. So live it with no regrets. And so the message is to everyone out there, don't talk about male allies and what can a man do, because this isn't men's problems. It is about the lived experience, and we need to accommodate so that we can have the best. I mean, think about by not having lived experience in the workplace, I don't know how many times your heels have been caught in escalators.
Yeah.
Or the number one fatality with airbags is women. They were designed by men on male dummies. Mm-hmm. We have different bone sizes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could give you a million examples of why this matters. Don't just give a woman a job because she's a woman. You give the woman the job and put her at the top because it makes better business. It is better for business, period.
Agreed.
I'll put the exclamation point on that.
So just quickly before you get into the questions, I am in the process of putting together a company soon. So can I reach out to you?
Oh, yeah.
Please. I would absolutely, because I want to structure it in the best way possible.
And
thank you. See? That.
Yes. He's wonderful.
I mean, right.
And what I want to say I appreciate so much, because even I can get caught up in this because, the women's fight is it's not that women are trying to be better than or have more than anyone. And everything that you're saying is like the shared lived experience. It is about all of us. It's not about taking anything away from anyone, and I say with passion, but half joking, women could run the world. Sure, we could, but we're not trying.
Less war.
Huh?
Less war.
Less war.
No war.
But if there was a collaboration with men and women with that gender gap closed, the equality gap closed, there would be just a better understanding, a more cohesive and inclusive community for everyone.
But also, and we need more of everything. So don't just hire one of everything, hire three at every level so that no one is lonely and lonely and everyone feels seen. But it's not just male, female, because plenty of women are not going to pull you up.
Right.
So, and that's why I say you want to have great conscious leaders.
Yes.
In those positions, I don't care what the gender is.
Yeah.
Understanding that lived experience is very important to defining who you are, what your values are, leading with purpose, following up with passion. And I think those are combinations for being unstoppable. When purpose means passion, you're unstoppable.
Shelley, you're unstoppable. You're incredible. I'm so...
Some mic
All right, Randy,
moments.
the three questions. Let's go. Take us out. Let's lighten this up a little bit.
Here are three questions for you. What is something you used to care deeply about and are now grateful you no longer do?
That's a really good question. No one has ever asked me that question. I think what people thought about me. I don't give a shit now. Postmenopausal.
There you go.
Can that be a t-shirt? Please. That is excellent. Yeah. I love that. What is a messy human moment that really taught you a lot?
I've had many, and I've learned a lot from them. Actually, one was my first review that was, I think, 6 typewritten pages. I must have been 25 years old, and my boss, his name was Bill Molt. Hi, Bill. And he ripped me to shreds in the review. First few lines were nice. I'm smart. I'm talented. I'm kind, and whatever. And then the rest, I push people out of their comfort zone. This is when I needed my job really badly. And in that moment, I looked at him and I told him, my head said agree, because they wanted me to sign the paper that I agreed with my review. But my heart, even at 25, was like, no, you're wrong. And so I looked at him and said, you are so wrong. And one day you're going to regret this decision. And he actually put a woman above me. I was demoted. She was promoted. And I said, well, why are you putting her above me? He said, because we're a research company and she's a researcher. I was doing business development or whatever. I'm like, okay, don't agree with you. I then was interviewed in a 5-page spread of this business magazine. And they said, what was one of the worst things that happened? I said, well, that review. And they said, well, how does Bill feel today? Are you still friends with Bill? I said, yes. And they said, well, how does he feel? I said, I don't know. Call him. Ask him. So they called Bill and they said, do you regret that review? And he said, no. I said, why? He said, because if she listened, she wouldn't be where she is today. She would have been following all the rules.
It's true.
And he said, so it's the best thing I've ever done. And it is true. It was messy. But life is messy. You got to color out the lines. And I knew I colored out the lines. And I always will.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So that's one of
we
them.
always talk about that. We always talk about like the successes compared to the failures in life and looking back on it, what you would change and what you wouldn't. And we always say like I wouldn't change any of the failures because I wouldn't then be in the place that I am right now.
And you wouldn't be you.
Right.
Like Oscar Wilde says, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need everyone that's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But you never had permission to be different. You have to take it.
And it never felt comfortable like that. The spotlight of it all was most people shy away from. They don't want to be seen outside of the group. They want to blend in, you know?
Yeah. All right. Last question. What would you tell your younger self now that you know more and care less?
Own who you are. And, you can try to be someone else once, twice, but you can't consistently be someone else. Sarah Jessica Parker says, and she says, I have to source her writer, but I love her. She says, trying to be a man is a waste of a woman. Think about that.
Oh, I love that. I want that on a t-shirt. That's amazing.
It's maybe when I was 28 years old in the same company, because I stayed. I remember we used to dress in these ugly suits and wear stockings, and I'd put my hair in a pony and I wouldn't wear makeup. And I was invited to go to this lunch with Penelope Queen. And she was the CEO of Saatchi & Saatchi, CEO of the research department of Saatchi & Saatchi, and I'm in research. And so I dressed dowdy and, because I don't want to, that's how we dressed. And I go to this lunch and I said, oh, I'm here to see Penelope Queen. And they said, oh, right this way. And they're escorting me to see the Queen, Penelope Queen. And there, I didn't know who she was. I didn't know anything about her. And there she was in this tight purple leather skirt suit, a little kind of unzipped, owning her feminine, and little skirt, and her cascading brunette hair, curls, and makeup, beautiful. And that was my moment of truth where I just took my hair out of my pony and I flipped it. I'm like, well, there's that.
Yeah.
And let's burn those fucking ugly suits,
Yeah.
But that was, a crazy moment that, and why I love Sarah Jessica. Trying to be a man is a waste of a woman.
That's great.
Boom.
Never heard that before. Going to use that often.
Thank you.
This is
Thank
fun.
you, Shelley.
Yeah,
Thank
Shelley.
you for
I want
sitting
to
with
interview all
us.
of you guys now.
And I'm really going to be reaching out to you. So
you better.
okay.
I'll be sad if you don't.
Okay.
Come to Beverly Hills for lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, we should. We
Yeah.
will, definitely.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Okay, let's pick a date.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of Oldish. We love you and we love that you're here with us. I hope that this episode resonated with you. It certainly did for us. And if you have anyone that you feel like you should share it with because they need to hear it too, please go and share it along. And remember that change doesn't happen when we stay quiet. It's when we talk to each other. It's when we get together. It's when we find our tribe. And we have to remember that women's issues are not women's issues. They are human issues. And equity and equality for all benefits all. So thank you so much for tuning into us. This was a wonderful episode, and we're going to see you on the next one.
I just wanted to take a moment to let you know that you don't have to navigate life alone. If there's something hard that you're dealing with or you're just ready for a change, then reach out to me at randyspelling.com, or you could DM me on Instagram, also at randyspelling. And if I can help you, I will. If there's a resource that I can share with you, I will also do that as well. Thanks.